Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the August meeting of the Economic Development Authority of the City of Lynchburg. It is 8:30, so we are going to start. I'm going to go through the roll call. And if you are here, please signify by saying aye. Mark Strohsnyder here. Bill Lovern.
Here.
John Stone.
Here.
Andy Mueller.
Here.
Georgianne Sneed.
Here.
Louise Mitchell.
Here.
And as all of you are aware, Jerry Swinton tendered his resignation earlier in the month. So we are in the midst of looking for a replacement for Jerry. So today we have a full attendance with 6 members. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the July 16th meeting and the retreat. Hope everyone's had a chance to review those. And does anyone have any questions, concerns, anything they'd like to bring before the committee?
Mark, this is Louise.
Yes, ma'am.
I see one thing I think that needs to be corrected, which is Reed's last name in the attendance. I believe it is spelled incorrectly. The C is left out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry,
Reed. Yeah, no problem.
I'm sure that's not the first time that's happened to poor Reed Wodica.
Certainly not.
I left the C out.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Reed.
No problem.
Thank you for being extremely observant on that, Louise. I missed that. Does anyone
My
else?
family doctor's last name was the same thing, so it popped right out at me.
Which might have been his dad.
Imagine that.
Oh, okay.
It is his dad.
All
Yeah.
right.
Definitely was.
Exactly, it is.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented with that change?
I will make the motion. Bill Lovern.
Bill's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Louise.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. I'll go through the roll call for approval. Mark Strohsnyder, yay. Bill Lovern.
Yay.
Louise Mitchell.
Yes.
Andy Mueller.
Yes.
Georgianne Sneed.
Yes.
John Stone.
Yes, sir.
And also, this doesn't need to be added to minutes, but just as a side note, we did have the list of officers that were presented at the last meeting. Once we find a replacement for Mr. Swinton, we will need to bring forth a replacement for the Assistant Secretary Treasurer position for the board, or for the officers for this current year. So we'll do that hopefully at the September meeting. Next item on the agenda is committee assignments. We have those presented as the following. On the Incentive Committee, Ms. Sneed and Mr. Mueller. Property Committee, Ms. Mitchell and the replacement for Mr. Swinton. And the Finance Committee, Mr. Lovern and Mr. Stone. Do we have any questions, concerns for the slate as presented? Do I have a motion to accept the committee designations as presented?
Mark, you don't really need that. You can as chairman, you can select the committees.
So done. Next item on the agenda is an update on the CARES Act Business Support Program. Ms. Benson.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you.
Hello.
So as you all know, in August, in earlier in the year, the city received approximately $7 million from the Commonwealth of Virginia's share of the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And in August, they received a second allocation of approximately $7 million. The city manager again tasked the long-term recovery team, and those that sit on that are Mark Jett, the Director of Economic Development, Kent White, Director of Community Development, the Finance Director, the Commissioner of the Revenue, and the City Assessor to manage the requests for use of these funds from the departments. And they have worked daily. No, Kent and Mark Jett can both attest to that, to work through these requests from departments. On August 11th, City Council approved an additional $2 million for the CARES Act Business Support Program that you all reviewed in July. So we went from $2 million to $4 million. On Wednesday, August 12th, our office launched the details of these business support grants, which I hope you all have seen. I've included the updated eligibility criteria on your agenda, and all information is posted on our website at the link opportunitylynchburg.com/cares. Eligible applicants are currently being contacted by our staff via letter, email, and phone call. And we will host a How to Apply webinar next Wednesday at noon. And those details will be posted today if you're interested in joining us for that. So we're asking you all today to, the grants are administered through our staff and through the Economic Development Authority, and we're asking you all to accept administration of the program and the additional funding from the City of Lynchburg for the program.
It's $2 million.
Yes, an additional $2 million, Ted.
Would someone like to make a motion to accept the additional monies?
And had we previously accepted the first 2 million? So
Yes,
we're just
John,
accepting the add-on.
Yes.
Motion to approve and accept. John Stone.
I'll second. This is Andy.
We have a motion made, properly second. We accept the additional funds. We'll go through the list now. Mark Strohsnyder, yay. William Lovern,
Yay.
John Stone,
Yay.
Andy Mueller,
Yes.
George Ann Sneed,
Yes.
Louise Mitchell.
Come on.
Louise?
Yes, I had muted myself. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
And Mark, I
Motion
have just one more thing
Uh,
on this item. So I just want to remind everybody that in July, you also approved the motion to have the treasurers open up accounts for management of the program with Bank of the James. And just wanted to update you all as we move into that staff is recommending that you open 3 separate checking accounts, one for program administrative costs, which are also coming from the city. So things that associated costs with administering the program, like the mailing that we have to do, for example. One for the business grants, which will house the $4 million for the business grants, and then one for the funds directed to nonprofits, which you're going to consider a little bit later in the meeting. And then we're also recommending that you have 3 signatories on these accounts, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary treasurer, and that staff will have the ability to just view the accounts and also receive customer service to administer the funds, but obviously not be signatories on the accounts. So just an update on where we're moving on that administrative side, and a reminder that you all had done that in July, and we're moving forward with Bank of the James to set those up.
Anna, does this come from the accountant as much as from staff?
Yeah, we have been working with the accounting firm, and we actually have a call set up with them tomorrow again to go through the whole program and administration of the program. We'll have to issue 1099s at the end of the year for all the grants, and that sort of thing. So just ironing out, we're continuing to iron out the administrative process for the program.
Okay,
That's all I have on that one.
don't think we need to.
No motion needs to be made on that. It's just a continuation of a previous motion.
That's right. I just wanted to update everybody.
Great. Okay, next item on the agenda is Virginia Tourism Growth Fund and Locust Thicket. Ms. Benson?
It's back. In July 2016, the EDA approved a $72,000 in matching funds for a Virginia Tourism Growth Fund grant issued by the Virginia Tourism Corporation for the redevelopment of Locust Thicket. The original performance agreement is attached to the agenda item. VTC extended the performance period twice, once to June 1st, 2018, and again to June 1st, 2019. In July 2019, VTC asked for 50% clawback of their original grant. So VTC gave their grant on the front end. The EDA has not released funds because we always release funds when the project is complete. The project is not complete. VTC asked for clawback. Per our performance agreement, we are asking that the project has been closed by VTC. No EDA funds will be expended, and we need to formally unencumber the funds and close the project. And staff will ask EDA Council to send that formal notification to VTC that the project has been closed on our side.
Don't everybody speak at once. Do we have a motion to accept this?
So moved, Georgianne.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Bill Lovern, second.
Bill has second. Georgianne has made the motion. Bill Lovern has seconded the motion. We'll go through roll call to formalize the acceptance. Mark Strohsteiner is a definite yay. John Stone?
Yay.
Bill Lovern?
Yay.
Andy Mueller?
Yes.
Louise Mitchell?
Yes.
Georgianne Sneed?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you
is
very
made.
much.
Thank you all. Next item is the CARES community funding. We're going to welcome Mr. White to talk about this.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak before you today. Really.
Kent, excuse me just for a second. If you could pull your camera up, we can only see your nose.
There we go. There we go. That's great. Well, you really did get my best feature at that point. I wanted to accentuate that. So. Great. Thanks. Really appreciate the work you do. And I know this request is a little different, but we were asking you to consider, similar to Ms. Benson's request, that the EDA administer community support grants for individuals and families impacted by the pandemic. As you know, a number of our residents have lost employment due to this crisis. And with City Council's concurrence, these grants would be delivered to us through established nonprofits, Miriam's House, LynCag, and Interfaith Outreach to provide rent, mortgage, and utility assistance for residents. The initial allocation would be for $200,000 that would be given to the EDA to administer, and the contracts that you have attached to your packet reflect those different amounts of $75,000 to both LynCag and Interfaith and $50,000 to Miriam's House. But long-term recovery's intent is to provide an additional $150,000 to the EDA to meet the full request of the nonprofits based on the need that they're experiencing in our community. We certainly know that they could do much more, but the timing of the CARES funding only allows realistically for about 4 months to administer this grant. And so we're asking them to do a significant task, and we're hoping by working through the EDA, we can get them started as soon as possible. I can assure you that the Department of Community Development, working closely with Economic Development and Tourism and the Long-Term Recovery, have the mechanisms in place to monitor these funds. We administer federal grants, such as the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Program, through these nonprofits. We're familiar with the process, And the reason we're working with them specifically is they had previously received an allocation and set up a program. So by doing this, we're not having to work with new nonprofits to set up new allocation, new verification, and new monitoring. That funding that I mentioned, the CDBG CV grants they received, they would put a pause on that because the deadline for that to administer is not for 2 years, and begin reallocating that either when all of the CARES funding is expensed or on January 1 when this program closed. Happy to answer any questions and really appreciate your consideration.
So this is Georgianne. I have a question. So I guess the reason that the EDA is asked to do this rather than the city is because there's less hoops to jump through, or?
It's a great question. So 2 things. One, city council actually by charter can only issue grants to nonprofits, to select nonprofits. And that is a very limited list. There is another process. We typically do community development block grants through the Community Development Advisory Committee. But again, timing is of the essence here. Being able to go through that public process and start that up, we feel like we would lose another month, and realistically with 3 months to administer the program, we're not sure how successful we would be.
I see. And these agencies came to you, or you picked the 3 and went to them because you knew them? Is that what you were saying?
That's correct. Because we have a previous relationship and a current grant relationship with them to administer this exact same program with funds that have already been allocated, this just basically adds to that pool of funding. We're going to use the exact same mechanisms to administer and report, so it shouldn't be a change for them. It would just be 2 different pots of money to accomplish the same end.
Okay, so if some other agency or nonprofit that does similar work hears about this, and then they want on the bandwagon and for the next round and come to you, is that possible, or this is it?
This is it. This is it. When we presented this to City Council, we presented it in terms of these 3 providers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kent, in talking with the executive directors of these 3 groups, how much more need is there beyond what the funds are available for this go around? I mean, I know we're looking at 200,000, but
There's another round too, I think. It's the second round.
what are the needs that they're seeing as boots on the ground?
Such a good question. They believe the need is significant. I will say that, of course, all the variables we're seeing play into this. A moratorium on evictions, which is certainly something that's really beneficial to the families. However, that is, and of course, delaying in a lot of cases rent payments and mortgage payments. So what we're expecting is kind of a bubble of that this will continue and the demand will continue to grow as they begin to process these things. Same with utilities and with utility payments for electric and water. We're starting to see families come in, but there's a suspension on those things right now. So our idea is to have as much funding available during the window that allows it, so that when that demand hits its peak, that we've done it. That said, we want to be responsible in the way we administer this, so we are setting performance measures in place to make sure that the funds can be allocated during this first round before we administer it or apply that additional funding. So, and we will continue to check in with them on a monthly basis to make sure that's happening.
Ken?
Yes, sir.
Bill Lovren, when this program is announced, will it be obvious or articulated that we are merely the conduit and we're not responsible for the oversight? As you've said, you've already set up the oversight. Will it be made clear that the EDA is purely the conduit of this transaction?
Yes, sir. We've already reached out to all 3 nonprofits in question. They're aware of that. We will not be advertising the program beyond that. So the nonprofits are aware of it. They know the relationship that we're talking about. And again, they know the process.
Thanks, Ken.
Yes, sir.
Mark, this is Louise. My question is to Margette and the EDA staff. With everything else going on, how are you guys going to handle this? Not saying that you're not capable, but you guys never say no to anything. So I'm worried about, you taking on something additional.
Louise, I really appreciate you saying that. And I don't think we have a choice.
Okay.
Back to Bill's point is that the EDA is a conduit for this. And no matter how many times that's what EDAs are set up for. Walter's opinion is that the city can't process this. And so we will need to do it. We're trying to do everything we can on the front end to streamline all of these processes, but it is going to be a yeoman's job for us. And we've got our whole staff. And I know that Kent and all the other departments, especially the departments that are on this long-term recovery team, they all know what a chore this is. I mean, we've gone down through all of these requests and everything that has gone on line by line and over and over and over again. So I just see that the next 6 months for us is going to be all about making sure that we get this CARES money out the door and to citizens and businesses in the best way we possibly can. And we've tried to make allowances for unintended consequences, but you can only do, so much of that. So I really, really appreciate the question. It is a lot. And like I said, every member of our staff has been assigned. There are over 1,100 people involved in the small business recovery side, and each one of those people, unlike any of the other municipalities that surround us in the region, we will have a letter, an email, and a phone call going to each one of these.
So logistically, from the Office of Economic Development standpoint, as a conduit, does this mean that you guys are going to have to meet with the nonprofits, talk to them daily to help them execute every check to every person?
No.
Or really just sort of monitor their activity?
Yeah, just monitor. There are, if you look in your Dropbox and in the packet I sent you, there are 3 contracts in there.
Mm-hmm.
And those contracts Walter drafted are between the EDA and these nonprofits, one for each one of them. And so we have put some restrictions on when they can request the money and how that goes. I believe, Kent, please correct me if I'm wrong, but X amount of dollars would go to them, and then they would be monitored to see if they're able to get that out the door. So it won't be as transaction oriented as the applications for the small business loan would be. They really tried to take care, Kent was especially sensitive to how many transactions these groups could do at any given time. We really are trying to look at it as though we've got $350,000 that's been allocated to go towards this community support. Each one of them has taken a piece of that, and those funds will be, dispersed to them. And then we check we meaning the city checks to make sure they've been able to get that money out the door.
Thank you.
This is all new to all of us, and I would just tell you that the guidance that we got from the state, which they did not receive from the feds, it's daunting, but it's also an opportunity for our folks to be able to receive some of this funding. We're really grateful to the state for putting it down here. It's a lot of hoops to jump through, and I think everybody on city staff Walter, Kent, our whole group has spent an awful lot of time trying to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's.
Kent, just a real quick question. Does any of this money, can it be earmarked for administrative costs to Miriam's house, to the other two, to LNCAG, or is it all flow through to the people that need it?
Yes, sir. Great question. The contract allows for 10% for administration cost, and that is actually on the low end of a lot of grants. Most grants provide for 20%, but again, in this case, we knew that they had the staffing in place. This is to supplement the staff, and of course, we're asking them to ramp up the same way our Office of Economic Development and Community Development staff are doing the same way.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any questions or concerns for Mr. White at this time?
We have to authorize it.
I think we, would anyone please tender a motion?
Yeah, this is John. I'll make a motion to authorize the chair to execute performance agreements.
I can second that motion.
All right, John has made the motion. Andy is second. We'll go through the roll call. Mark Stroessnyder is a yay. John Stone.
Yay.
Andy Mueller.
Yeah.
Phil Lovern.
Yay.
George Ann.
Yes.
Louise Mitchell.
Yes.
Okay. Item is approved. And next item on the agenda is review of the EDA handbooks. Mrs. Upshur.
So the other thing we'll tell you all is on all these, on both the CARES, business support program and the community funding, we will certainly update the authority every month as to where all of this stands. Yeah, so Anna, can you pull up the handbook?
Yes.
Thank you. So what we're going to do is, obviously, some of you brought your notebooks at the retreat, and some people haven't, but we are going to come into the 21st century and update this handbook electronically. So it will be in your Dropbox and you all can have that. We certainly will give you a hard copy of it, but in terms of having to go through things and change things rapidly, it just makes more sense for us to keep an updated copy in your Dropbox where you can get to it. But I'm just going to go over the highlights and
Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, but I only see the agenda.
Still shows the
Oh,
agenda.
okay, 1 second.
Yeah, but we'll just go through it, and the other thing I would say is, please just take your time and look at any of these things. We want to answer, we want to answer the questions and make sure that everybody on the authority, to some degree, understands the contracts you have, the property you own, how the financial statements, there are things on the financial statements that, may be things that you want to be handled in a different way. And all of that can be done. And there's no pressure on you today to have great questions to all of this, but we'll go over it. And then we're happy, as always, to entertain any questions that you have about any of this. And I would just ask that those questions that you have come to me. And then that way nobody, I've been here the longest besides Ted, and I'll certainly take anything I need to back to him, and I'll get Anna to help and Melissa, but I just don't want any other member of staff, especially in the way we're having to operate right now, where people are working remotely. I'm here at the office, and I don't want Melissa put in the middle of some of this, even though she's got a ton of institutional knowledge as well. But a lot of these things, if they're going to be answered and dealt with, and it also helps me because it just reminds me that we really need to give you all a platform and a foundation of this information so that you can make good decisions.
Marjette, can I just
Okay.
open really quickly? Can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. It may not be readable on your screen with the screen sharing, but I just want to say these are all now, these files are now in your Dropbox under EDA Handbook FY21 updates. So you'll see these slides, but also folders for each section that have contracts and leases, performance agreements, financial information. So you'll see what we reference in here. There's a folder for each of those that have all those documents in them, so you can look at them digitally. Sorry, go ahead, Marjette.
All right.
Wow.
So move along.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, you know, we have the authority members and contact information, your terms of service, the meeting and committee schedule. So I had told Georgianne and Andy that we would have an incentive committee meeting today, but Ted didn't get that I didn't catch it on the public notice. So we can't really do that, but we will start having committee meetings again. I'll get you the information ahead of time, just if we do nothing more than, if it's the finance committee, just go over, you know, what we have, or if it's the property committee. I just don't want to get out of that rotation too far. So you all have a list. It's the third Thursday at 8:30. We do the committee meetings. We roll the committee meetings afterwards, and we'll get back on our regular schedule for that. We try to have the committee meeting right after the regular EDA meeting so that we don't make you have to come to another separate meeting. So all of that's there. You've then got the staff of economic development and tourism. You've got the committees. So there's a finance committee, there's a property committee, and there's an incentive committee. And those committees in your Dropbox have their own folder, and they have whatever policies are available for those committees. That is included in those folders as well. So then there's the bylaws for the EDA. There is the legislative, you know, the actual part of the Code of Virginia that has sanctions what an EDA is and what they do. So that's quite a lengthy section. It establishes EDAs and you know, and talks about what their powers are. Then contracts, any contract that the EDA has, and Anna, if you can go to that.
I will. Let me just go through this. Marjette just talked about, this is the About Us section. Here's who you are, your contact information, your terms of service. Here's the meeting schedule and which committee is meeting. Here's your property list. This is the updated acreage and assessments for your property. It's gotten shorter this year. It's our staff. And then your committees, including the revolving loan fund committee, I wanted to add, which you all updated in September. And then here's the bylaws. I'm going to scroll because.
You seen this?
Okay, Marjette, here's your supporting document sections.
Right. So there's the enabling legislation.
This is for the bankruptcy.
Which I'm going
And
to
the freedom
pretty quickly, guys. It's very long. So.
And then I have your certificates, which are in the Dropbox as well for your FOIA training. So you all have certificates for the FOIA training except for John Stone. And I think he can go online and be able to complete that. There's also the new, you know, statement of economic interest that was done by the ethics committee, that all authority members and any you know, council appointed groups or groups that government governmental entity groups that handle any kind of money have these new statement of economic interest. And because Ted handled the FOIA side and the conflict of interest side, I didn't really have a copy of what the old statement that many of you had to fill out when you came on the board previously. I just knew that this new statement was a lot more, and I'll just use the term invasive. It just asked for a lot more information, and it did it off cycle, meaning this information was due like on August 3rd, when normally, you know, there's a set time every year where these things are completed. So we will really need to make sure that any, you know, EDA member coming on understands this statement of economic interest. And I appreciate all of you getting that filled out and getting that back to us. Now we have the lay of the land, which is that is something that, you know, needs to be filed with the clerk of council. But if you just, whenever you're doing it, like when Andy sends me his form, that form will be, I'll know that it's done, and then I'll make sure that it gets to the clerk of council. And I'll also make sure that in the future that you all have plenty of time to update that or fill that out. So appreciate your patience with that. That was just dropped on us in June, I believe. So as I said, the agreements of the Economic Development Authority, you have an agreement with the accounting firm, Brown Edwards. We have our website, and all of that is with 434 Marketing. We have a lease with VWXT for 109 Ramsey Place. We have an MOU, which the money that is paid to the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance flows through the Office of Economic Development. So we have an MOU with the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance. The Small Business Development Center flows through the EDA as well. So we have an MOU with them. We have a brownfield grant, and our consultant for that brownfield grant is Draper Aiden. We also have Rick Reed is the real estate agent for the city, but he also is for the EDA. So we have an agreement with Rick. And then the financial documents would be the audit. And I'll just mention that we worked really hard over the years. For many years, we didn't get the audit from the previous year until almost the end of the current year. And so part of that delay is always that you end the fiscal year and then you go out to your bondholders to ask what the amount that they utilized of their bonds, and they had to verify all of that. So we are now in August, and Bill already has the letters in front of him to send to all of the bondholders to request confirmation of the amount they drew down or had used of those bonds. So each year we've seen when we can get the audit and close the year out and get all of that done, we've seen that has gotten a lot better. So Brown Edwards is the accounting firm, and Davidson, Doyle and Hilton, Amy Gallagher, who comes to speak to you all when the audit is complete, they do the audit. So we've got the budget. We've got your Capron Asset Management, the holdings, the bond holdings with Capron. And then a list of the conduit bonds that you all have, and then other, financial agreements and investments, which you're very limited on what you can invest in. So here are the bonds. Thus, this is the list, and those are the letters that would go out from from our office, from Bill.
And you can always access this list too. It is an addendum in your audit. It's at the end of your audit.
These are the programs that flow through the EDA. So the revolving loan fund, the agreement and the administration of that, which is done by the Business Development Center. That agreement is in there. Co-starters comes through the EDA, the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Initiative, that's EWI. And that's a partnership with Campbell County. The local redevelopment grant is the program is the general development support money that the city grants to us and comes back through the EDA. And then the CARES business support program would be added to this. And so performance agreements, whenever we have an incentive, we draft a performance agreement. Sometimes those performance agreements are done in conjunction with the state of Virginia. And sometimes those performance agreements don't include the state. There's no incentive coming from the state. So we have our own performance agreement that TID reviews. And so right now, the performance agreements that we have are Locust Thicket, which are just getting ready to take off the books. Seven Hills Foods still has a performance agreement that they asked for an extension with the state, and I just submitted their final. See how easy that was?
Wow.
The Seven Hills Food that asked for an extension, and they've just completed all of their work, their annual report and everything to go on with that. So I will probably be bringing, there's only about $16,000 in your encumbrances, I believe, left for them because they qualified with the investments and the hiring they've done. So we'll clear that off the books. The Virginian is an ongoing agreement, back to what we just talked about with the community funding for CARES. The EDA was the conduit for the Virginian funding. The EDA is a conduit for Rosedale Farms if that were to ever, come to fruition. So the EDA will always be, the conduit for any incentive program or any program where money's changing hands that has to come through the city in certain structures. So city market lofts, that is long before many of you, but that was refinanced last year, and we just received I followed up with them yesterday or the day before, and we just received their financial statements and audits. So that was a big deal when we went on the hook and you all did that, allowed them to refinance instead of paying us off, was that we got annual financial statements. So we received those. The Bluff Walk, you all had a loan to the Bluff Walk. They refinanced as well, and you took an equity stake in that. And they merged and did some restructuring last year. So that is much more that the EDA just received statements as any other, stakeholder would with that. And then Lynchburg Grows. Lynchburg Grows, you all are the co-signer on their note that they have at the Bank of the James. I mean, I don't think it's a note anymore. It was converted to a loan. And all of these are things that we will all review every year. We'll review everything in here every year. And, I think Lynchburg Grows is one of those that you all have done a great job of helping them through, a rough patch by just being the land itself there is worth more than what the loan they have, but they've just never restructured any of that. And I just believe that because we need to keep up with what their financial statements are and what's going on there and all of that. That's just added staff work for us. And I just think that's something that we ought to consider, just having them stand on their own and taking care of that. So that'll be something we could talk about. I think I've mentioned that, previously. It's just back to Louise's point, staff here is the one, as you all know, other than reviewing the documents, we're the ones that have to do the background work. And so the less of that we have to keep up with, the better. Anybody have any questions? I don't expect you to. Please look through it and let us know if there's anything on there that you want more information on, or you need clarified, because we certainly want to get your questions answered.
All right. Hearing no questions, Margette, staff report, please.
Yep. Your staff report is in your Dropbox and was in your packet as well. We also put in there an economic overview from Jobs EQ, which I think is really, really interesting. And I will say that the long-term recovery team, we're looking at unemployment, we're looking at lodging tax, we're looking at all that, and things are slowly but surely ticking back up. So we just received the lodging numbers. Lisa sent those to me, I think it was yesterday. And so a lot of things here have continued on. I received the performance agreements back yesterday from Bosch and Lomb. Their legal team has looked at them, and Ted's got them now to review what the changes were. Bosch did ask whether or not they could have a clause in there that said if they made 90% of their investment target, which is $35 million on this project, if they couldn't be considered to receive the entire incentive from the EDA. And I will tell you that this language of the 90% is in the state's contract. And the truth of the matter is you all have a cap on capital investment in terms of how much money somebody can receive. And, the 35 million and the 79 jobs that they have, they would have qualified at 2%, which is your amount that you put towards an incentive once it's verified. They would more than qualify for that. So I think that 90%, if they got to 90%, that would not be, they would have made an investment, a capital investment that could be verified, that the citizens were getting a return on that investment within the normal 36-month period. So you don't need to do anything. I'm just putting it out there.
Margette,
Yes.
in our performance agreement with Bosch, we have one with Bosch, right?
We are working on it now. It's not finalized.
Is there somewhere in there where there's an automatic prorating if they get to 90% that we want to then get rid of, since we don't want to prorate it, we want to give them the whole amount?
No, there's no, we don't have any of that language in ours. It's kind of all or nothing is the way ours is written. They're just asking us that if they got to 90% at the end of the performance agreement, which will be 36 months, if 90% could be considered to allow them to collect the whole incentive.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And what we're going to do is I just sent these documents to Ted. So with the Bosch and Loan project, there are 3 agreements. There's a VIP, a Virginia Investment Program agreement between the state and Bosch. We're not a party to that. There is a COF, a Commonwealth Opportunity Fund agreement, which we provide. What we do from an incentive perspective counts towards the one I spoke of, the VIP and the COF. We're just not a party to, we don't have to sign off or execute for the VIP. The COF, we do have to execute. And Ted's got that agreement. It's come from, we did the agreements in conjunction with the state, sent them up to Bosch. Their legal team has looked on them and they've just sent them back. And they sent them back, and I just sent those to Ted. So Ted needs to review those documents for the EDA, and then we'll bring those documents that have been, you know, and if there's any back and forth, we'll take care of all that. And then we'll bring the documents back and put them in your Dropbox so that you can review the performance agreements. So I just, as a frame of reference, when they made the request for 90%, I just wanted to put that in perspective for you, that the state has similar language in their agreements. So back to the staff report, Commonwealth Games got pulled off and no mass cases of COVID-19. Of course, we had to intervene to make sure that they had a close relationship with the Virginia Department of Health. Our team worked really hard on, you know, helping them to stage that event in such a way. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at everything. And one is whoever is putting on the event, or the colleges that want to open up, or all of that. And then you've got the citizens of Lynchburg who will also be impacted by any decisions these folks make. So that's one of the places we find ourselves when we're talking about tourism. We would love to see many events happen, but we also can't promote social gathering at all. And so, you know, there are 2 sides to that, but the Commonwealth Games was able to be pulled off. And I've, you know, other than anecdotal citizens not being really happy that was, you know, that 10,000 athletes, so to speak, were coming into town, that it seems that was managed and handled without crowds very well. We are still sending a bi-weekly newsletter, which has been very well received, that has COVID updates in it, as well as tries to highlight businesses here. We are partnering with Centra, HealthWorks, and PCHP, as well as the Small Business Development Center, to provide wraparound services for this CARES Act business support program. I don't know of anybody else doing that. We will be doing a webinar with them next week. So I feel like that for our businesses here, we are really trying to go the extra mile to make sure that they not only receive this money, and hopefully that helps, but that we're doing something to put them in touch from a health and safety perspective, and from a business organization and, you know, reset type of thing to help them be sustainable. City Hall is not open, as you all know, and it won't be open until there is 14 days of cases declining within the city. So we are all working really hard to figure out when the public is allowed back in, what that is going to look like. And that is a monumental task, I will just tell you. So there is a tremendous amount going on, and I will tell you that from a development perspective, things are still, from the manufacturer side of it, Georgianne might be able to speak to it, but things are still rolling on, and our development, I don't know if Kent's still on the line or not, but we had some, our numbers for the amount of development that was going on or permits looked at or things like that was really astounding over the last 2 or 3 months of people moving ahead with projects. And one more thing, Ted, if you could help me.
What's that?
We have 2 CDs, one at American National and one at Carter Bank and Trust. And they would like some sort of documentation that Mark helped us out and went through the drive-through to re-sign our CD with Carter Bank and Trust for 12 months. And they need some kind of documentation, Ted, that authorizes, and what I would like for it to say, it authorizes the chair or the chair and the secretary treasurer or the chair and the vice chair and the secretary treasurer. I don't care how many people are on there.
Right.
But just so it doesn't have people's names, maybe it says the chair, so that we can make sure, and it can be in the minutes today, Ted, or anything that you give me. I just want to give them for their auditors that our chair is authorized to sign for that.
Sure.
4 CDs.
Yeah.
Thank
we
you.
can do that.
What it's done that is have names. Well, every time you have change of officers.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Margette. We have no issues for closed session, and Anna, if you'll move the.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No incentive meeting.
No incentive committee meeting today. And our next meeting will be Thursday, September 17th at 8:30. I assume we'll still do that virtually, but be on the lookout. More information to follow. Does anyone have anything that needs to be brought before the committee? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.